It's another Sunday, fun day with the boys, so you know what that means. The three-man weave is locking in, and we're ready to pass the rock. So let's get it going. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today, as they always do, we have the three-man weave in the building. First up, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. How you doing, my guy?
Jittery, drank too much coffee, but ready to go.
The coffee beans are percolating. I can't wait to see what comes out of my guy's mouth today.
You don't want to know what's going on in my brain right now. Pure chaos.
Hopefully
Pure
we find out just a smidgen. And of course, we've got our podcasting cousin from across the pond, the leader of the Taylor gang, the one and only Adam Taylor. What's popping, Adam?
What's up, King?
I put my crown on for the lead in the Taylor gang. What's going on? If you're watching on YouTube,
leader of the Taylor gang. Is
that from Burger King?
That's like a dress up shit for my kid.
Is that an homage to the MVP of the inaugural NBA in-season tournament, King James? Is that what you're going for there, Adam?
No, it was more of an homage to being the leader of the Taylor gang, like the King Taylor. I'm fucking giving LeBron no homage. This isn't a Lakers podcast.
I know. We don't want to, we don't want our fans getting at us here for giving some Lakers love. But I did have a question here before we get started. I wanted to pose to you guys. So, in-season tournament has come and gone, the first one, and I think we all agree, big success, a lot of fun. They can make a few tweaks that even increase the fun scale, if you will. So I think they'll do that. But I think it's a really good first step. But each player from the Lakers last night, they're going to get $500K for their winnings. D'Angelo Russell talked or was asked the question before the game, what would you do? And he said, man, I'm going to go on vacation, which first of all, for $500K, that's every vacation for the rest of my life and then some. So it's just mind boggling to think about the levels that there is to this shit when we think about how athletes with money, like fucking Shohei Ohtani just got $700 million yesterday. But for a couple of average Joes like us, I'm curious if you guys came into $500K after a tournament. We win a podcasting tournament, 3-on-3 podcast basketball tournament finally happens. They put up $500K. The boys take it home. What are you doing with that $500K? I'm gonna go to you first on this, Adam.
I'm investing all $500K in property, dude. I'm being smart as shit, simply because I'm never going to see $500K. I've never had $500K. I'm not going to miss $500K. But I'm going to have, I don't know how many houses, maybe one, maybe two houses.
You're gonna go full Heatles on us? Not one, not two, not three,
not three. I mean, two probably max, right? Like if you're buying like modest size cribs, one to live in, no bill, no rent. Your mortgage is paid off, you're comfortable. And then one to rent out, so I've got a little bit of spending money. I'm quite I don't need the vacations or the yachts or anything like that. $500K is not enough to move the needle in terms of. I couldn't even buy citizenship to the US for $500K for the three of us. That's $750K. So I've done my math, I've done my research. Yeah, $250 each. And I can't leave one of us behind. There's three of us, so the 500. It's not moving the needle. I'm buying two cribs.
You guys can't go full Squid Game for it. See who makes the cut.
Nah, I love them both, man. Otherwise, it'll be me that ends up staying home, and I'm the one who needs to be out there the most. So I'm like, nah, man. I'll just buy two cribs.
$250K for citizenship.
It's called an investment. It's called an investment visa. So you pay the $250. They invest it into property in a dilapidated area. You own the property, and then you get a visa for investing into the country. $250 per head.
Wait, who gets the money?
You give it to the US government. They buy something. You technically own what they invest the money into, and then you get the visa for making the investment.
Huh. Interesting. I feel like you should just learn the national anthem or something.
I mean, that would help, right? Like I've got five options. I'm marrying an American, not happening. Have an American kid, like American family, don't have that. Don't have a job, out there willing to sponsor me. So the only option I've got is to buy my way in. And dude, I don't have 750K.
Mm.
Well, let's get you 2/3 of the way there. So
yeah, so then I can buy 2 cribs.
You can't buy 2 cribs in America. Well, depending on where you are, I guess. You ain't gonna buy it in a place that you want to live, though.
Yeah, definitely not here in Austin, Texas.
Or in
But Will, I
Really?
did see we were talking about taxes before we hopped on here. I did see that after taxes, the players are actually taking home about $240,000. So
God damn, taxes hit hard, man. They cut that shit in half, more than half.
yeah, when you're getting that lump sum of money, especially with the California taxes, I think it's a little bit more. But yeah, so 240,000, I would probably let's see. I would definitely buy Danielle a new car because she's driving like a 2005 like Dodge Charger or some shit like that. So maybe a Ford. I don't know what she's driving. That's a piece of shit. She's driving a piece of shit. So I would definitely buy her a new car, pay off student loans, and then probably, I don't know, man, probably pay off some of this mortgage, just regular people shit, dude.
I mean,
regular
honestly,
people
dude,
shit.
I'm with you. We're in the Luke Cornett lane. Most of this is, if it's 240, most of that's going towards paying off the mortgage. Like I said, Adam, you ain't affording 2 houses out here for $500K in a place you want to be. So that's going towards most of the mortgage. I mean, obviously, I think it would probably go towards my upcoming wedding at some point. That would be part of it, and then the rest of it would mostly go towards the mortgage. But yeah, it's especially when you throw in that that wrench of taxes. Yeah, man. This is the thing, is right. I don't know if we were talking about this with Cerruti or we were talking about on one of our recent podcasts, but like, hey, it's really cool that like for other rounds you get like X amount of money, and it's like, man, if you start getting hit with them taxes, like that 50K turns into maybe 26K, 25K, for the whatever I think it was the quarterfinal teams got 50K or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if they're getting 50K, they're probably getting taxed at, I don't know, they're probably
it's a lesser
like
bracket,
32, 33.
But the point being,
that, yeah.
Joe Mazzulla the other night, after JB got that absurd ejection, right, was saying, I'm doing everything in my power not to get a $25,000 fine. That's covering one fine in the NBA for you making the quarterfinals. You're getting one fine out of the way, basically, with that. So it is, it's a weird reality when you start to break that down and everything that works in that NBA financial ecosystem. But all right, well, that's it. That's what we would do.
I'm just thinking.
That's how we wrap that up.
If you're on a vetmin's what, 250?
I think it ranges depending on years of service, but yeah, something around there, 250.
So if you're on a vetmin and you get one fine in the NBA, that's 10% of your gross yearly income on one fine.
Yeah, you better be on your best behavior, dog. Like, I mean, that's why.
Luckily, you're probably not playing, so it's going to be very hard to get a fine.
Yeah,
if you're on a vetmin,
I mean, I think a lot of times when that happens, that's where like a veteran will step in and be like, you got to pay it probably out of your pocket, but like I'll Venmo you, which is a crazy thing to say. I'll Venmo you 25K, but I think things like that start to happen. But yeah, that's what we would do with 500K. Not the most exciting.
None of us are fucking.
But hey, man, we got to work.
500K does 500K is a lot of money, but it does not go as far as
exactly
you would hope it would go.
It helps alleviate some life problems. Doesn't take care of all life problems.
In the UK, you're probably getting 2 reasonable 3-bedroom houses in an okay area for 500K.
Hey man, there you go. Run up that portfolio. That's what you can do in the UK. But let's do what we do here. You guys ready to pass the rock?
Let's do it.
All right, let's hit it.
You guys ready? It's the plan, Bobby. We're winging it, Jerry.
Yeah! I got the rock now! I got this motherfucker now! What?
Oh, I love our new intro. I love the new intro to Pass the Rock, especially as Greg debuted this with Caitlin Cooper last week, who had zero fucking clue what movie that was, which made it 10 times better. Greg, you were looking at her reaction. Could you tell when you played it? She was like, I have absolutely no idea what's happening.
Well, like Adam was supposed to be on that pod. He had internet issues. So I was like, all right, I feel super silly playing this clip right now with Caitlin Cooper. But also, what if she's seen it? What if Four Brothers is one of her favorite movies? And it just opens up this amazing conversation I wasn't expecting to happen. So I played it, just, took a shot, and it landed flat on its face. But who knows? Maybe I'll hit up Caitlin and ask her if she's gone to see Four Brothers.
So one of my favorite things about that is I uploaded that clip into our recording service, and really I only did it to test it out, and then I was going to take it down so that I could surprise you guys here in one of our 3-man weaves, but I forgot to, and so I didn't know that Greg had noticed it and was going to play it with Caitlin. So when we went back and I think I was uploading the YouTube or listening to it, and I was like, oh my god, he actually played the cut that I put together from Four Brothers. And so I was hoping to get a little moment between the three of us, but Greg went for it because I do have it labeled in there as Pass of the Rock. But that made for a fun little moment to see you and Caitlin, what you thought could potentially open it up. Didn't really go anywhere, but it was still fun to see. But let's get this going this morning. And you know what, Adam, let's go with you. You start us off today. You got the rock. What you gonna do?
Yeah, so I'm going to keep it off basketball for a moment. I just want to blow some smoke up our own asses. I think we've been crushing it on this show lately. The Green with Envy page put out a tweet probably about a week ago, maybe a bit before this last string of guests, just listing out some of the different guests that we've had on the show in the last 6 months. We ended up adding Caitlin on there. We ended up Saruti come back on. We had Mike Gorman on. You know, numbers are slowly trending up across the board. I just wanted to say, man, like, while I got the rock, I just want to blow some smoke up our asses and be like, it's really easy to keep looking at where we want this thing to be. But man, we've come some distance. We're back on Bleacher Report again. Keep your eye out for that.
December 20th, lock in.
So I just wanted to keep it off basketball for a minute, just to blow some smoke up our own asses. You know, give you guys some flowers, give me some flowers, and just be like, yo, man, we crushing this shit.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me, like all the people that were, I wanted to talk about the in-season tournament anyway, but all the people that were kind of hating on the celebration last night. Like I'm cool with people celebrating accomplishments. Like I think it's cool to look back at the stuff that you've accomplished. Like, 4 years ago when I listened to during the pandemic, I listened to a couple Celtics podcasts. I was like, I feel like I could do this. And then we started doing it. And then all of a sudden, I'm talking to Mike Gorman 4 years later, and he kind of like people know who we are and whatnot. I think that's really cool. So I wasn't hating on the Lakers for celebrating last night. I think the champagne was a little silly, but I think like overall, just like celebrating and like having fun with your teammates, that's what you should do. You should always be willing to celebrate. You don't know, tomorrow's not promised, not to get dark or anything like that, but like we don't know how long we're all going to be here. Talking about diabetes, I got high blood pressure, like all this stuff happened in our life. Like, I think it's okay to celebrate, and I think it's really cool. I also think I left Jonathan Macri off that list. I looked back at it the other day, and I was like, I don't think I had Macri on, and I think we had him on the pod recently.
Yeah, we did recently.
Yeah, we did. Shout out to our guy Macri. And real quick, just we got our Discord page up and running. Apologies, the link that we had in the YouTube description was out of date. It's up to date now. So if you're looking in the YouTube, you're looking on Spotify, you're looking on Apple, wherever it is you listen to your podcast, that link is up to date. Come rock with us on our Discord page. We're having a fun time in there. We love getting direct feedback. We love hearing what you guys have to say. And believe me, for those that are in the Discord page, they know we've incorporated them a lot into our last couple of episodes, and that's going to continue to happen more. But yeah, guys, it's I mean, honestly, like the Mike Gorman thing is one of the craziest parts. Greg and I were shooting around the other day and just saying, there's a lot of people from our neighborhood, which is the neighborhood Mike Gorman is from. And, we got a lot of messages just like, holy crap, you guys had like Mike Gorman. And, I put the tea leaves together. I saw Will took a picture with Mike Gorman a couple weeks ago. And now all of a sudden, Mike Gorman's on the podcast. And, the more that we grow this thing, I mean, the biggest thing overall is number one, definitely it's fun to take a minute and celebrate. But two, I have so much fun doing this each and every week. And I mean, you two are a big part of that. But then also being able to meet all these other people in the NBA, world that we now live in. It's just a massive treat to be able to do that. And it's just so much fun that like we want to make this our full-time gig. We're not quite there yet, meaning like just the podcast itself. I know
people, you don't think people could tell that we're not making a lot of money off of this from the conversation we just had about that? None of us have any money. Okay.
I want to put gas in my car, so I need to get a new tire. So if you guys
groceries, some fucking
shit. This, like I said, this shit is fun, man. But yeah, celebrate the little wins. That's kind of the message here. Just celebrate the little wins. There's nothing wrong with celebrating. And Greg, to your point, listen, the Lakers won. Of course, we don't like the Lakers. We never want the Lakers to win. Everybody that's a Celtics fan wanted the Pacers to win last night. no doubt. Don't give the Lakers shit for celebrating. Like, they won a fucking tournament. There's a tournament to be won. There's a trophy to be won. Like, I agree. It was, I think the champagne part was weird because no one knew what to do. Because at the end of the day, it's December 9th. So cool. This is fun. I'm glad we won. There's something to be won. There's something to be said that we went out and did what was needed to be done to win this tournament. But also, if we're spraying champagne like fools on December 9th and come, April 15th, we're the 9 seed and we lost the play-in, like, it's gonna look really fucking stupid. So there's also kind of that, like, conscious awareness.
Well, you know what I was thinking? It was like the NBA was kind of in the perfect spot for the celebration because they had employee number one, LeBron, who was going to be willing to celebrate like no other if they won that, and they also had the Pacers, who would have actually celebrated with like that much gusto because it's the first time they would have won anything. So I think the NBA was in the perfect spot. The amount of people that were just like, oh, look, this doesn't count, blah, 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 blah. It's like they won a tournament. They played a tournament. There's only one team that won the tournament. It was them. Fuck the Lakers, but also like hats off to the Lakers for winning that.
Yeah, we'd be celebrating the Celtics too. If the Celtics won and when they win next year, we're going to be celebrating. So like,
I'll be obnoxious.
Yeah, like it's going to happen. So
incredibly obnoxious.
Wouldn't that be cool though if like the first two in-season tournament winners were the Lakers year 1, Celtics year 2, and then like maybe year 3 it's like Celtics versus Lakers. Like that'd be kind of cool. Like, why not?
It could be the three-peat the three-peat we never got from 08 to 2010, right? To a degree, on a lesser scale, 17.5 championships for 17.5 championships.
Oh, we're giving them half championships.
Yeah, no, they can't get that. I'm just fucking around. I think they even said they're not even going to hang a banner for this. Which I mean, if you're the Lakers and Celtics, you can't really hang a banner for this. But if you're the Pacers, you probably should have. You know what I mean? So it is an interesting dynamic. But let's take a quick break here, and then we'll keep passing the rock. All right. Next up, Greg, let's go to you. What do you got for us today?
I want to talk about Derrick White. Derrick White, who obviously...
I'm open for that conversation. Let's roll.
So this might not be the conversation you're expecting to have, but Derrick White's awesome. I love Derrick White, one of my favorite players on the team. My question to you guys is he currently in the perfect spot to be as a player? Right? He can have big games and get talked about as he should be an all-star because he just had this big game. He had an unbelievable game against the Knicks, right? One of the best games of any player all season on the team. But he also never has to worry about the consistency of putting up those numbers and the full attention of defenses. That is actually like the first real test of how great you can be as an individual player. Obviously, Derrick White, what he does on the court, it's not about individuality. It's about kind of raising the level of his teammates around him. But my question is he currently in like the perfect sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone of what it's like to be a player looked at like by a fan base and appreciated by a fan base?
Okay, so if anyone weren't listening, me and Will were just kind of trying to figure out which one of us is going to take a stab at this first. For me, it's the beauty of being a role player, right? Like that's what comes with the territory. He's on a team that's already got the established stars, 3 of them. And then he's one of the top 2 role players on the team, like that star role player, but not a star within himself type of thing. So I think that role in itself is the Goldilocks zone where, as you said, if you have bad games, people don't really get on your back as heavily as long as they're not like a consistent string. I don't think it's perfect for him because I think that if you put him in a bigger role, he can sustain whatever's being asked of him just because of the way he plays. But in terms of just avoiding criticism, yeah, man, I think this is a really good spot for Derrick White. The only pushback I have there is Drew Holiday is in that exact same role, that star role player role, and he has not been exempt from criticism when he's played bad. I just think that with Derrick White, the bad games are still quite decent. A bad Derrick White game is not you left scratching your head thinking, why didn't he make that rotation? How is he being so over aggressive on offense? A bad Derrick White game is he still held someone to like 49% shooting from the field. He's still got 6 points, 4 rebounds, and an assist. I just think that it's not so much him being in a good spot as him just being such a consistent production. The production from him is so consistent. This question is so good and so tough. That's going to be my answer. I just think that he's in a great spot, but I also think that he's just too consistent to be in a position where people want to criticize.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in the perfect spot relative to expectations. And so I think what Adam just said, bringing up Drew Holiday, is kind of the good counterpoint, right? Where now Drew Holiday is more than a role player, but he's kind of been reduced within what the Celtics are asking him to do to a role player, or to be kind of similar to Derrick White, right? To be that star role player and be able to kind of fluctuate what's needed night to night. And that's a big adjustment for a guy like Drew Holiday. But for Derrick White, and I've said this, I think to a degree, he's kind of the engine that or kind of the glue that keeps this team together, right? Because he can be the guy that does what he did the other night, where he has this amazing game where it's, I think he had like 30 points, filled the stat sheet across the board.
No turnovers.
No turnovers. And like, then to Adam's point, he can have a game that's technically, quote unquote, either not flashy. Maybe it's 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, but his floor is so high that he's still doing impactful things to win a basketball game. And if you listen to Chris Stapps on the Old Man and the Three, he talked about how Joe Mazzulla makes them at different times go around. What's something you love about a teammate? What's something that drives you crazy? And his was almost the same thing. Like, Derrick's so good. I love that you're always making the right decision. That what drives me crazy is the handful of times you don't, because I know that you're always making that right decision. So for Derrick White, this is, in my opinion, absolutely the perfect spot, because, and I think with him, he's gotten to a place where more than maybe anyone besides Tatum, he 100% knows his spots. Maybe actually more than Tatum, because at times Tatum's too passive. So I think Derrick White is the guy for me that on this team knows his role each and every night and can adjust, knowing that, hey, tonight might be the night I'm feeling it, and I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive, and I'm going to go for 30, or I'm going to hang back, I'm going to facilitate, I'm going to do everything I can on defense. And he can fluctuate between those responsibilities better than anybody else on this team. And so I do think, to your question, Greg, he's absolutely in the perfect position. And it does definitely, take him away from criticism from the handful of nights he might have a bad game or a few bad decisions, because he's still finding other ways to impact. So like when you do your grades, it's probably going to be hard most nights to not give him at minimum a B-. No matter what else happens. Like, that's kind of almost his basement on a game-to-game basis.
Who's the guy Austin Reeves wishes he was? I've said it before. I'm going to keep saying
I love that line. I thought about that the other night, actually. I love that.
Austin Reeves could hoop, man. Austin Reeves could hoop.
Yeah, but he's not Derrick White level of hooping.
But here's the thing. I think, to Adam's point, like, I think what that means is that Austin Reeves still sometimes doesn't figure out, like, what night am I going to be the Derrick White, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and do all the little things? And then what nights am I going to be Austin Reeves? I'm ball dominant. LeBron's telling me you're the go-to guy late in the game. Like, I still think and he's younger, right? Like, he's still figuring that out. Like, I think there's more of those in-between moments with Austin Reeves than you see with Derrick White, and Derrick White's a better defender. So I think he's
way better. Yeah, that was going to be the point I was going to make, is like Austin Reeves. I think you could probably make the argument Austin Reeves has a deeper bag than Derrick White. Like his pick and roll creation, his isolation scoring. It's kind of crazy. His ability to draw fouls. They both have very similar games, like right around the basket, that decel step that both of them are getting so good at, drawing contact, finishing off the glass at like weird angles. But like just looking at Derrick White's game log, and obviously Derrick White is not measured by points. Like the reason why nobody really complains about him is because he's not really making mistakes. Even when he's not putting the ball in the basket, he's still playing defense at an all-NBA level. He's still moving the rock, making all the right cuts, all the right screens. Like he's getting really good at screening, rolling into the short roll, like all these things that Derrick White is just great at, because he understands the game of basketball at such a high level. But if you just look like from the casual fan perspective, if they're just kind of like tuning in, checking in on Derrick White, and they're like looking at box scores, like, can you imagine if one of the Jays or Porzingis put up back-to-back games? And this was right when he returned from having his kid, so that caveat there. But he had 4 points and 3 points back-to-back games against the Raptors and the Knicks in early November. Can you imagine if like the chaos that would ensue if one of the Jays had back-to-back games of 4 points and 3 points? And Derrick White, everyone's like, oh yeah, but like we won both of those games, and Derrick White still did his thing otherwise. It's just like Derrick White's in the perfect spot, and I'm not hating on him for it. I just wanted to ask the question.
I mean, it's all about expectations, right? So the interesting part to this question would be, and you mentioned it, right, that people are kind of throwing him out as a fringe all-star candidate.
Yeah.
If he were to make an all-star game, I wonder how that changes those particular games where it's like, this guy's supposed to be an all-star. What happens if he gets $28-30 million on his next contract? I don't know where, I think so. I think some of that would change.
Well, it reminds me of the guys we were sitting next to, Will, for the Knicks game last year, where anytime Tatum or Brown did anything at him, they would just be like, "Oh, there's your all-star. There's your all-star, fucking bum. There's your all-star." It's like Tatum and Brown are really freaking good at basketball.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, that was tough watching the game next to those guys and just being like, it's not worth engaging on this. Like, these guys are hammered. They just came from work, and like I'm not dealing with these type of guys. But I want to go back to the Derrick White All-Star campaign just for 1 second. Do we think there's a chance that he could make an All-Star game this year? I mean, there's a lot of good guards, so I think the answer initially to me is no. But I'm curious if you guys think there's an outside chance.
Nah, I don't have him in the All-Star running.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, you look at Maxey, Halliburton, Brunson. Those are basically 3 guaranteed guard spots, and we haven't got to Trae Young, haven't got to Donovan Mitchell, haven't got to Darius Garland, haven't got to Jaylen Brown if he's considered, a guard versus a guard. Yeah, so it feels like there's just too many available guys at that position for it to happen. But he's having a freaking awesome year. So shout out to Derrick White. All right, let me go to the first thing I got here, and I want to keep it. I'm going to keep it with the Celtics here, and I'm going to go to Sam Hauser. So we talked about Sam Hauser at the beginning of the year. I said I was going to die on the hill that he's a definitive rotation piece for the Celtics. So far, that has 100% held up. Also, I think one of my favorite stats from last year is just the simple fact that Sam Hauser appeared in 80 games last year. That still blows my mind because we think of him as this fringe rotation piece that was in and out of the lineup, but he played 80 fucking games last year. Like 80 games. Like, it's hard you can't play. There's only 2 more games that he could have appeared in that he didn't. So he played in 80 games last year at 16 minutes a game. He's up to just under 23 this year. He's shooting 2 more threes a game. He's, up to scoring from 6.4 to 9.6. But all that aside, I was watching the game against the Knicks on Friday night. He didn't have a good night shooting the ball. He was 1 of 5 or 0 of 5, something like that. He didn't shoot the ball very well. But I think it's the other things that Sam Hauser's doing that deserve a little bit more appreciation, that have really kept him in this lineup, regardless if he has a bad shooting night where he's not getting pulled right away. And I think we think of, off the bench, Peyton Pritchard's that gritty hustle player. Sam Hauser's just as fucking gritty, and just as much hustle comes from Sam Hauser. Whether it's him crashing, I love his weak side crash on both the offensive and defensive glass, the way that he can keep possessions alive, the way that he can, even if he's not getting credit for a rebound, he's keeping it from the other team on the defensive end, and that's turning into a lead out or a run out. And then you look on the offensive end, even when his shot isn't going in, he's such a gravitational force that there was a play the other night where he was on the left wing, made a cut, from that 45 slot. And immediately, I think it was quickly, and I can't remember who it was for the Knicks, they were like, what do we do? Sam Hauser's moving. And they completely abandoned Peyton Pritchard for a wide open 3-point shot. And so knowing that Hauser, with his movement, his cuts, his ability to just space the floor, even when he's not hitting shots, the little things that Sam Hauser's doing, I just think they need a little bit more appreciation, because it's very obvious when he's knocking down shots that, yes, Sam Hauser's great. He should be out there. But the things that he's doing, that even when it's not about making shots, are to me what's making Sam Hauser such a staple of this rotation, and a guy that is honestly one of the best contracts in the NBA right now with the deal that he's on.
So I was just pulling up Hauser's game log, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Will. He's really impressed me this year. Like, obviously early on this season, he was struggling a little bit with his shot, but he has 11 games of 3 or more 3-pointers made. He only has 5 games where he's made either 0 or 1 3-pointer this year. Like, Sam Hauser, in terms of consistency of what you need out of Sam Hauser, number 1, he needs to be a knockdown 3-point shooter at a consistent level at a high clip, and he's doing that. 2, he needs to be able to play his role on the defensive end, and just like, people want to go hunting Hauser, and then he holds up, take teams out of their normal offense, all the stuff that we normally talk about with Hauser, and be able to guard in isolation, which he's really good, especially playing his angles, knowing where his help is, and sliding his feet, especially for the first initial move. Like, he doesn't really get beat off of a first step. Sam Hauser almost never gets beat off of a first step. So I think that right there is huge, because if you get beat off the first step, that's going to send the defense in a rotation, and it's going to be a whole shit show for the rest of the team. But if you can guard your yard for at least 1 or 2 dribbles, you're at least going to know that your help, if it wasn't there in the first place, will eventually be there. So I think that's big out of him. And then just his ability, like that cut you were talking about where it ended up with the Pritchard 3?
It was a Pritchard 3.
Yeah.
It was quickly, and I can't remember who else it was. We're just like,
I think it was
Sam's
Randall.
on the move. It might have been Randall.
Yeah. Randall ended up staying low. Quickly probably should have stayed up high on that action between Hauser and Pritchard. But that's another great thing is, I think, Adam, you wrote about this in one of your 10 things, the split actions that they were running between Hauser and Pritchard. I think that's another thing, like weaponizing those two guys on the court at all times with the gravity they both have. Yeah, I've been really impressed, man. You know, I'll eat crow on Hauser. I didn't say that he wasn't going to be, but I wasn't like, I would, bet all my money Sam Hauser is going to stick in the rotation. But you've been saying that for a couple of years now, and it's definitely paying off.
Yeah, I think he's one of the only role players, and I know they're not running deep into that bench, but he's one of the only role players they're running actions for, like, consistently. He's improved as a guy that drives closeouts, like these Hauser dunks that have become a thing. Predominantly are from when someone closes out hard on him. He's timing when they plant their foot, so then their recovery times at its longest, and then he's driving straight out on them, really creating defensive collapses when he's driving. When you're asking him to come off pin downs and stuff, defenses are scrambling because they're scared of that 3-point shooting. And again, it's gravity, right? Like, even when he's having a bad shooting game, his presence on the floor just creates so much space and so much attention, because you have to guard him. He could go 0 for 5 and you still have to guard the 6th, the 7th shot, because he's one of the better 3-point shooters in the league at the moment. His defense, as you guys said, I like the way that he really doesn't get concerned about putting his chest into guys. Like, he does step in the way of contact and absorb it in his chest. He's got a good low basis of gravity, so he's hard to move. He moves his feet well. I think that at this point, I can see him being a rotation guy with the Celtics for beyond his current contract, as long as they can afford to keep him. To me, one of the best building blocks of a team is when you can pick up, like, I like to call them like unsung heroes, guys that just diamonds in the rough. That's what Miami do. It's what made Miami great. I was
gonna say, that's the Miami Heat special right there.
Yeah, and like Brad Stevens, like, he takes his first swing and he hits. You know what I mean? He hit a homer when he brought in Hauser. So I'm a big fan. I think that he's going to stick around. He's shown some like improvements that probably don't stick out in anything other than watching the game. I don't think he's really going to have metrics that stick out for his ability to drive closeouts improving from last season to this season, his ability coming off floppy actions or pin down actions, and the way that bends the defense. I just think as an individual, in terms of growth, he's taken steps forward both sides of the floor, and no one's asking him to be a superstar, right? He's just really playing his role well. I would like to see him incorporate some more off-ball cuts in terms of like Ricky actions or Corver cuts, just to get free and be able to hit catch and shoot opportunities at a little bit more of a higher clip with a little bit more space. But overall, man, I'm loving the Sam Hauser minutes. I always feel confident when I see him stroke that shit. Pause.
So there's we have Sam Hauser. We have Sam Hauser signed through. We have a club option for him at $2 million next year.
I'm gonna make a quick prediction. We're gonna pick that up.
Yeah, that's getting picked up in the next
right. So my
hours.
question is, like, did we pick up that option? We kind of kicked the can down the road on a Sam Hauser extension, but like, could we maybe sign him before he goes off for like a crazy season? Like, imagine next year he ends up averaging like 16 points a game in like 28 minutes. Like, maybe somebody gets hurt or someone's role just kind of like they decline just a little bit. Maybe like a Drew Holiday just declines if we end up re-signing Drew. And Sam Hauser has a crazy year on that $2 million contract. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we probably could have signed Sam for $6 million a year last year, or the Peyton Pritchard contract, the $8 million a year. Now we're going to have to pay Sam 13. Now we're in the Grant Williams case where we have to lose a guy that we probably could have signed if we just gave him like a little bit above market value at the current rate. So that's the only thing I'm thinking about with Sam moving forward. I definitely want to keep him long-term in green though, because he's definitely becoming a real weapon.
Yeah, I wonder what his, and I think if he maintains the level of play that he has through the first quarter of the season, I'm very curious to know what actually the number would be, because I think it's going to be beyond whatever the Peyton Pritchard number was for 8 million. If that's what Pritchard's getting with less body of proven work based on, opportunity, I would imagine Pritchard Hauser for, what he can bring to a team. I mean, he's gonna, I forget what Max Strus got, but I don't know if he quite be there yet, but something in that ballpark, right? In that range, maybe a little bit less. So it's interesting. And then it gets down to what the Celtics are willing to pay tax wise, because this is gonna be, that second tax apron team. And starting next offseason, that's when it's gonna really start to hurt. Right now, they're in a period where it's, a little bit of a barrier. Starting next year, it's going to be, a really tough barrier for this team to overcome. They're going to have to make some really tough decisions. So it is interesting to think about.
If Joe Mazzulla's the head coach, they're paying him whatever he needs. Like, if you're going to be a 3-point heavy team,
you got to have a guy like this.
You don't get one of the better shooters.
And like Greg said, this is why this has been a big issue for me, is that even with Brad Stevens, they weren't quite at 50 a game, but they were in the top 3-4, 3-point shooting teams towards the end of the Brad Stevens era. And we never had a guy. We had Marcus Smart, Jalen Tatum, fine. Like, we always had guys that were Marcus Morris, we had guys that were in the mid 30s to high 30s, but we never really had guys that were shooting the ball consistently above that 40% clip, right? And so you've seen in the last couple of years, you bring in a guy like Malcolm Brogdon. Al has stepped up his game, and now you have Sam Hauser. You have guys. Derrick White's been shooting the hell out of the ball the last 2 seasons, and so now you have more guys that are hitting that percentage. So it's going to make sense for if that's how you're going to play, even if you can find other ways to win, which you need to be able to do. And I think this team hasn't got enough credit for being able to find other ways to win this year, even though they're still shooting a lot of threes. Like, you need that consistent 40, 41, 42, 43% guy. And, Hauser, and I think it was our guy Wayne Spooney over at First to the Floor, did a kind of a video the other week talking about how Hauser is becoming a Kyle Korver-like figure, within the offense. And you need that type of guy if you're going to shoot as many threes as the Celtics do.
Yeah, I'm completely down. I think that you do keep him around for as long as you can.
All right, Adam, what you got next? Let's roll.
I want to go with Bill Sy, the Celtics guy, wrote
the Celtics guy.
I love Bill. Bill's my favorite. As Jared Weiss once said to me, he's my favorite Bill. He's my favorite Sy. He wrote a piece that I really agreed with, but I know that it's probably quite controversial. And that's this Celtics, this team as a whole, for the most part, are really damn boring to watch aesthetically. And I kind of lean into that quite heavily, because I get the math-based approach. I get the attacking the mismatches, running screening actions to get a mismatch, then do what you need to do. But man, the lack of like pizzazz or flair that this team plays with, the lack of like crazy, like when was the last time you can think there was just a stretch where there was just a lot of flair in the way they play? Right, it's very methodical, and I put this out on Twitter, and I think I triggered a few people. I had a back and forth with Derrick White's dad over it as well. I'm just not a big fan of the aesthetics in the way this team plays. I just don't think it's an enjoyable watch. It's enjoyable when they win. It's enjoyable from time to time when you get the dunks and stuff. But on the whole, especially when you watch a young team like the Pacers playing, it's just fun as shit from start to finish. Then you come and watch this Celtics team with all the talent that's there. And it's just like, okay, yeah, it's a basketball game. I like basketball and I'm enjoying myself, but I'm not like, dude, this was a masterpiece of basketball art. I'm like, all right, yeah, okay. It's like a finger painting of basketball art.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that since I saw you tweet that and I saw Bill write that article. My first thought goes to growing up watching the Celtics and like and this was maybe more like a league-wide thing than just a Celtics-wide thing, but they're like were never high flyers on the Celtics, and we never had like super athletic dudes on the Celtics. Like I remember when we got Gerald Green, I was just like so excited to have someone that could like catch an alley-oop and dunk it. You know what I mean? And now when we watch the Celtics and you see the level of athleticism that's on the court, and you see Jaylen Brown playing in transition, you see Jason Tatum slithering through the defense and yamming on people. You see Porzingis finishing oops like last couple of years with Rob. I think we never had a guy like that. I remember a conversation I had with my brother about DeAndre Jordan back in the day, like early DeAndre Jordan, not current DeAndre Jordan. And just like, man, like why won't the Celtics, when are the Celtics ever going to get like a vertical threat? We just like never had that. Like Tony Battie, like a little bit to some degree, but like that was the pinnacle of like athleticism on the Celtics when I was growing up, you know. And even KG when he came over, like, yeah, when you watch KG early on, like, oh shit, KG was probably a little bit more athletic than I kind of gave him credit for at that point, but he wasn't KG when he was on the T-Wolves, you know, when he was like driving closeouts and reverse dunking on people. Like even that KG was a little bit more grounded than early KG. So like in terms of excitement, I think there's a lot of excitement on the court most games, right? But I would agree with the aesthetic nature of Mazzulla ball. Let's just call it what it is. Like this is more Mazzulla ball. And when you juxtapose that with what the Miami Heat do, dude, like, oh my God, when I watched the Heat versus Pacers, I tweeted out like immediately, I was like, the Celtics got to step their shit up, because the level of execution that you see, and it's every decision, every second, every possession. That's the level of execution that those teams are on, that this team, I think we have the luxury of not needing to be that crisp because we have so much goddamn talent on the floor. But when you see what the Heat are able to do, and when you think about how well the Heat have played us over the last couple of playoffs, like that's beautiful basketball. When you turn it into a Miami Heat game and they're, you know, Jimmy Butler's on the bench, Bam Adebayo's not even on the court, and they're just running the perfect offense, and you're like, God damn, it'd be really nice for the Celtics to be able to do this. But at the end of the day, we have so much talent,
and that's what I think is the most important part, right? Is a lot of times when you see, especially in the NBA, that most beautiful form of basketball, moving the ball, everybody's has to do everything. It's because they're extracting they're working so hard to extract every ounce of what their capabilities are out of it. And typically those teams aren't going to win. Those teams aren't then just going to win. The talent typically more often than not wins out. Now, obviously Miami, a little bit of an exception with the way that they played and how they've been in the finals 2 of the last 4 years. But generally what's going to win out is that talent over those teams that even when you think back to, you know, some of the Brad Stevens era teams, we're like, man, they move the ball. Look at the play calls that they have. We didn't win. We weren't, and most of those teams were never going to realistically win because they weren't going to have the talent that you need to win. And even a team like the Nuggets, right? Like, yeah, they move the basketball, but everything goes through Nikola Jokic. And when are they at their best? When it's him and Jamal Murray running a 2-man game, which is, you know, kind of what every team is looking for, is what's that unstoppable factor that we have that can overwhelm you with the versatility of the talent that we have in different ways that we can hit you with it. And so I totally get it. It's a very appealing night to night watch, but most of the teams that are doing it, you know, the Kings, the Pacers, like I said, the Heat are kind of an exception in this conversation that I'm making, but most of them are never going to actually win the whole thing. And it's going to be the teams that have that talent. So for me, like I understand the point. And I think for me, it's more just the end of game still. When it gets to a tight game, the aesthetics and the frustration of sometimes we still fall into those bad habits of, you know, just getting poor shots, not moving the ball, having 1 to 2 passes late in a game. And we're ending up with, yeah, Tatum can hit a tough fadeaway in the baseline, but, you know, we spent 20 seconds and that's all we got was that type of look. You know, for me, that's where I agree more so than the overall outlook. I think just ultimately I'd take the talent over, hey, this is a really fun basketball team that I'm not sure is actually going to win or have a real chance to win something.
But the problem is this team's good enough to be a really fun basketball team and win. Yeah, and generally those two things go hand in hand. Like when a team with a high level of talent plays a good brand of basketball and they're fun to watch and they're enjoying their system, they're enjoying the way they play, they win. It for me, what I think the most frustrating part for me is that the talent is there to play a really aesthetically pleasing, enjoyable brand of basketball, and we just don't get that. And I'm not saying that's on Mazzulla. I'm not saying it's on the players. You know, it was kind of like under Ime Udoka, it wasn't that aesthetically pleasing then either. It was very, very, very grit and grind, shut it down. But there was a kind of like a pleasure in watching you shut teams out with like 80 points and being like, dude, like, how are you going to beat us when you can't score above 80? But in general, I'd prefer, and I've said this on Twitter, like, to me, the NBA is an entertainment industry. It's a brand built on entertainment. Sports is entertainment. And when you're one of the most talented teams in the league, but you're not entertaining, that's a flaw for me. Like, if you're trying to grow the league and grow interest, if you've never been a basketball fan before and someone's like, yo, the Boston Celtics are the most talented team in the NBA right now, tune in. I can guarantee you're going to love it. And then you watch what, like, this brand of basketball, you're like, yeah, okay, I can see why people like it, but it's not for me. You go and say, go tune into a Miami Heat versus Indiana Pacers game on the in-season tournament. They're going to be like, dude, this basketball thing's fucking great. Let me watch more of this. I just think the aesthetic side of the way they're approaching games at the minute just isn't really where it should be for the amount of talent that's on this roster.
Yeah, and they'll have moments of it, but I think that's
Yeah.
the frustrating part, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you guys can do this. Like, we've seen it. We've seen you guys play the beautiful game of basketball, that 0.5 basketball they always talk about. I think the
0.5.
potential, not 0.5, the potential of this team, in my opinion, for like where it could be great is on the defensive side of the ball, with White and Holiday, Tatum and Brown being as good of defenders as they are, and Porzingis in the middle. Like, I do think they have a special connectivity on the defensive end that they can get to. I still think that they're learning to play with Drew Holiday, and like the freelancing that Joe has allowed him to do, anticipating those switches and trying to get to his instinctual level of switching that you're seeing Drew Holiday. He's seeing the game like 3 steps ahead on the defensive end. And I think Derrick White's probably the next closest there, just in terms of seeing the defensive reads and everything. Like the last game they had against the Knicks in the third quarter was just insane. Some of the plays they made in the third quarter together, the stock exchange, was just nuts. Like, you don't see that level of connectivity between two guards every single day. So like that shit, to me, like as a former coach, like that, I was a big defensive minded guy. Like, Will knows, like, my favorite shit is just guys that fucking guard their yard and play defense. And that's why I like watching this team, is when they have those moments when they're super locked in and then that will lead to what I find entertaining on offense too, is just transition basketball and being able to be super athletic. But this is why I think the Heat are so unique, is because they have the system, they have the players that are bought into the system, but then they also have Jimmy Butler and Bam like in the fourth quarter to close out games. You know what I mean? So like they can hang in games they probably shouldn't be in, just because of Spo and the system that he has put into place. I'm trying so hard not to say Heat culture, but I think that's what's great. If you're a Miami Heat fan right now, you're like, yeah, at the end of the day, we got the best coach in the league. We got a system that works, and we got 2 players that are going to be a bitch for anybody to play in any fourth quarter when it matters.
Yeah, I think every podcast out there basically is trying to do what you just did, which is just describing Heat culture without saying those 2 words together, using every word to describe exactly what probably they put on. Have they done that court yet, where they wrote their whole manifesto like in the middle of the lane of like what Heat culture is? But yeah, it's one of those things where it's super frustrating, but like I said, the Heat are kind of an anomaly with everything that I said in my point, because they kind of find a way to do both. And some of that's that they have, like you mentioned, Bam and Jimmy, who are top tier talent. Let's take one more quick break, and then we'll wrap this up here in a couple minutes. All right, Greg, let's keep passing the rock here. You got another one for us?
Got another question for you guys.
Let's do it.
At what point do the Celtics regret trading Aaron Nesmith? How good does he have to get?
Ooh, I like this question. Okay. I mean, I really like this question. That's a tough one to answer, right? Because you just see him out there guarding Giannis late in the game, and you see the way that he played against the Celtics in their in-season tournament, and you wonder, man, did we miss an opportunity with this guy? But I think the biggest thing with
We
Aaron
traded him
Nesmith,
after his rookie year?
No, second
Sophomore.
year.
Second year.
Yeah.
Second year. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing for me is Aaron Nesmith. I don't think ever would have become what we're watching right now with the Pacers, with the Celtics. There just wasn't going to be the opportunity.
Halliburton raises his game.
And Halliburton raises, Halliburton's going to turn into one of these Jokic type players, right? Where it's like, oh man, remember that season they had with this guy? And then they're potentially maybe not. I mean, we'll see. They might not be the same guy the year after they leave and go get a payday somewhere else. And, it's going to be, life's just not going to be as easy as it is with guys like Halliburton and Jokic. So I don't know. To be honest, I just don't know the answer. Like, it's a really good question because I don't know what it is, because it's confounding at times watching Nesmith closing games and seeing his intensity and energy. But I also do think that there's for now, a pretty tight ceiling to how far you're going to get with Aaron Nesmith doing the things that Aaron Nesmith is doing to really be a guy that can truly close out. I mean, if you saw some of his jump shots from, the last couple games, like there's a couple times where he's got an open jump shot and it's still incredibly inconsistent. It's gotten better, but it's still pretty inconsistent for a guy that was supposed to be a shooter. So I think there's
An
limit.
absolute sniper.
Yeah.
Those were his words.
Best shooter in the draft.
Yeah.
Outshot, broke Jason Tatum's record, like the practice record. Like Aaron Nesmith, I remember Danny Ainge saying like, oh, this guy's going to come in and immediately be the best shooter in the gym. I still remember Danny Ainge saying that. What I'm seeing though with Nesmith, and then Adam, I really want to get your take, is like, is he turning into like Tony Allen? Like, is that kind of like the mold of player that Aaron Nesmith is kind of becoming?
Slightly better jump shot than Tony Allen. You know what I mean? We don't got to like, he's not
maybe
gonna be
not as
sniper,
good of a defender, but like
Yeah.
he has the grit and he has the fucking tenacity where you're like, oh my, like Aaron Nesmith in Boston, just like the excitement that he's continuing to play with, the strength, the athleticism. I remember Adam, when he was on the team, you were just like, yeah, we expect to get a knockdown 3-point shooter, and we got a slasher who's really good on defense. Like that's the player that we ended up getting. It just wasn't what we bought, but it wasn't what, we got sold a product that we weren't expecting. So I think with Nesmith now, every time I see him play, I'm just like, man, he would be a fan favorite in Boston. He would definitely be a fan favorite.
Yeah, I think he would, but I don't think you regret that deal, because that deal is what led to Drew Holiday. You make that deal to bring in Brogdon. You get a 6 Man of the Year season out of Brogdon. Probably one of the, there's a chance that when everything's said and done, that was Brogdon's best career season, that and his rookie year. So you get one of Brogdon's best seasons of his career, then you flip him for Drew Holiday, which not only helps replace the Marcus Smart loss from earlier in the summer, but obviously gives you a few different dimensions. I think we can all agree that as an overall talent, Holiday is an upgrade over Smart. So, and as Will said, Nesmith was never going to be what he is now in Boston. He wasn't getting the minutes. And then the other question you need to ask yourself is, if you had Nesmith, would you have this version of Hauser? And the answer is no. And then the question to ask is, well, which one would you rather have for the way this Celtics team plays? Would you rather have Nesmith or would you rather have Hauser? And I think that's where I kind of leaned, like, Hauser makes more sense because he needs less touches and there's just not enough touches on this team available anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think they ever regret it, but I do think it's definitely a good what if type of deal because Hauser's awesome. No, sorry, Nesmith's awesome.
So if I don't have all of the pieces here, but just in terms of players, if you told me a couple of years ago that we could turn Marcus Smart, Romeo Langford, Aaron Nesmith, Rob Williams, and Josh Richardson into Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and Derrick White, like when you think of it that way, because if Nesmith became Brogdon, but Brogdon got us with Rob, got us Holiday. But if you just go back to the initial asset, which is Nesmith and Tice, I guess we got to throw Tice in there too. Tice was in that. Then Gallinari is probably in there somewhere.
Yeah, Gallows.
He was along there.
But
he never actually played for us, so that's like, that's
Muscala, right? So all these guys, but like
hilarious list of names to end up with what we did.
Right. Holiday, Porzingis, and D White, especially how good Porzingis is this year. Like, I feel like I'd take that any day of the week.
Yeah, you do. And I think that you don't regret that because you've vastly upgraded your talent level. I love Nesmith and I loved him when he was in Boston. I love watching him play for Indiana. I love the nickname Crash. If I was in that front office, I'd have zero regrets.
Yeah, Caitlin, you got to get the Crash Nesmith name generating. And I was a little surprised in that interview where she was saying that it didn't, because I was with you, Greg. I think you said to her, the couple games I've tuned into, Crash Nesmith still definitely applies. The guy was going, head over heels, full tilt, flying all over the place. So I'm surprised that nickname hasn't carried over as much to that Indiana Pacer fan base, because I still think he plays very much in that Tasmanian devil mode that we saw for a couple years, here in Boston when he got opportunities. But that's a fun what if, man. I like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think everything you laid out, Greg, when you take that list of players and who they became, and then Adam, I think the other point that's really important is Hauser just makes more sense for what this team actually needs right now than I think what Aaron Nesmith would bring. I think it would make this team, once again, even better defensively. But I think overall, when you look at that full balance in the way they play, Hauser might actually be the better fit right now. All right, I got one more for you guys here before we get out of here for the day. Celtics have kind of a weird week coming up here. So they don't play again till Tuesday against Cleveland. And then they've got 4 games in 6 days against 2 teams. So we've got the kind of those home splits with 2 teams. So we've got Cleveland on Tuesday, Cleveland on Thursday, back to back with our arch nemesis, the Orlando Magic, on Friday, followed up by a Sunday matinee against the Magic. And so these 2 teams represent 2 out of the 3 teams that the Celtics had losing records against last year. The other team was the Knicks. They're now 3-0 against the Knicks this season. They're 0-1 versus the Magic. We know they've lost 4 straight to the Magic. So looking at the Cavs and the Magic, and I think relative to expectations, the Cavs have been somewhat one of the more disappointing teams so far to start the year. They've been a little bit below what maybe their expectation was. I know for me, I was a little bit higher on the Cavs, thinking that regular season wise, they'd be a little bit better than they've been so far. And of course, the Magic, they're in second place in the Eastern Conference. They're exceeding what I think people thought, even people that really liked them, that they could be a 2 seed, quarter of the way through the season right now. So I thought this would be fun. And Adam, I know you're not a huge fan of ranking stuff, but humor me here.
I got you.
What I'd like to do is let's power rank the players from the Magic and the Cavaliers here. Let's get a top 6 player power rankings of the Magic and Cavs. Which one of you wants to take the first pick?
Greg,
you have the first pick. Cavs, Magic, you got their full rosters. Who's the first pick?
I think you got to go Mitchell.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to go Mitchell. He's got the star power. He's proven it in big moments in the playoffs. As much as I'm not going to even mention other names because I don't want to step on toes for the next picks. But I think with Mitchell, like when you see what he can do in high leverage situations, and this like the sheer force and physicality that he plays with at the 2 guard position, he can be really special, man. He can be special on the defensive end as well when he really locks in, when he's just like one possession, we need to stop. Like Donovan Mitchell does have that kind of defensive pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
So I would pick Mitchell, and I wouldn't think twice about it.
Real quick, Adam, before you answer, what if I were to add the caveat for the next 2 to 4 years? Would you still pick Donovan Mitchell, or how would that change your answer?
You said Adam. Did you mean me?
Well, I meant I was going to you. I said Adam before you answer.
Okay.
I wanted to redirect this question.
Okay.
So if I were to change this,
that would change my answer 100%.
Who would it be then if it was the next 2 to 4? Because Donovan Mitchell's not that old. He's not that old, so that's why I'm curious.
It'd be Paolo.
Would be the answer. Okay.
Yeah. I love Paolo. I think Paolo is a combination. He's got some Melo to his game. He's got some Tatum to his game. He's got some LeBron to his game. He's got some Giannis to his game. Like when you start throwing those names out there, second year in the league, and Paolo, he's a fucking monster, dude. He's much bigger than Tatum. Like when you see them next to each other, like goddamn, like Paolo like makes Tatum look small. And it's his second year in the league. Like Paolo's
shooting 40% from 3 this year. I don't know how sustainable that is, but even if he keeps it in the high 30s, that's perfect for what
he's gonna be a beast.
Man. He's
gonna be a beast. Yeah,
I agree. Paolo. Okay, you went Mitchell. So you went Mitchell 1. So we'll keep with that. Mitchell 1. Who you going number 2, Adam?
You've just literally done the entire run on why as well. So
this is why I didn't want to mention any other names, bro.
I get it, but I just wanted to see, because I think these are 2 young, kind of youngish. These are 2 young teams, and I wanted to see how that would change kind of the dynamic.
So I'm going Paolo. And like there's an argument, in my opinion, depending on what you value more in team building, to have gone Paolo at 1. Right. Yeah. Mitchell's the better player right now. He's also the star player, as Greg said. But again, depending on what your thought process is in the way you build a team, where's most important, you could have gone with Paolo at 1 as well. Paolo's the unequivocal number 2. I have my thoughts on who should be number 3, but I just want to see who goes there before I chime in.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly 2 candidates that we're looking at for this spot here. And so not doing the next 2 to 4 years, I'm going Franz. I'm going to go Franz in this spot right now. Yeah. I mean, Franz just does so much for you. He's just so versatile with the way that he approaches the game and the way that he affects the game in multiple assets. I think the other guy that we're not talking about, he has the potential to be really, really special. But it's starting to get to a point with Evan Mobley, which is, of course, who we're talking about here, that, like that potential needs to turn into more than potential. Now, it's still obviously early in his career, but it's becoming a lot of, oh, he could do this, he could do that. Well, he hasn't done a lot of that stuff that we're saying he could do just yet. Whereas Franz, I think you see the blueprint for how he's going to play and how he's going to keep getting better and better. And I think right now it's hard to say that it wouldn't be Franz in this 3 spot. And then I would assume, Greg, pretty obviously Evan Mobley would be number 4.
You'd be wrong.
All right, tell me why.
He's making the right decision. I know who's going with, and it's the right decision.
I hope I'm going with Darius Garland.
That's the right decision.
Yeah, dude, okay. Darius Garland's amazing. He's
so good.
Dude, he's so good. If you're talking about how there's no pure point guards left in the league, like I think that conversation is a little outdated at this point. When you see what Garland can do, when you see what Halliburton can do, like these guys that are kind of the classic point guard types, Darius Garland is so freaking good. His numbers aren't as good as you might. I was
going to say his numbers are very down this year. Yeah,
he's been hurt. Yeah, I think he had a hamstring injury, so he's kind of like bouncing back from that. But Garland, man, like the shots that he's able to get for his team, and I think the Garland Mitchell thing, one of the reasons why I don't think Garland's playing as well is because I don't think him and Mitchell really, it's kind of like Tatum and Brown, like they're redundant to some degree. Mitchell's so good just playing high pick and roll and just like being a one-man offensive show. Garland, I think, would benefit from being with someone who's not as ball dominant. If he could be even more of a table setter and just take over when needed, like last year, I don't know if you guys remember this. I forget if it was 3 of us, if it was just me and you, Will, but I said one of my bold predictions for last year was that by the end of the season, everybody would say that Darius Garland is a better player than Trae Young. Or that was my bold prediction at the beginning of last season. I'm not really sure where I stand on that right now. Trae Young's been pretty freaking good.
I'm so low on Trae.
Yeah, Trae. So we talked about how Trae and LaMelo are kind of like the same type of player. LaMelo's just 6'6" and Trae's 5'11". Yeah. I would go Garland over Trae, but when you see some of the shit that Trae can do, it's just like, damn, dude. Like in terms of just offensive potential, like Trae's so good, but he sucks on defense. So Garland will at least fight on defense. He's super quick. He's always in the right place. I think he benefits from playing with Allen and Mobley, though. You know what I mean? Like having those 2 guys in the back line. If you put Trae with them, who knows what that looks like? But Garland. I'd go Garland.
Okay. I mean, I can't make too much of an argument against that. Go ahead, Adam.
I would completely overlook Mobley once again because I want to go with. And this is just like picking your top 6 from these 2 teams together, right? I've got this right. Yeah. So who we've got so far, we've got Donovan Mitchell, Paolo, Franz, and then Garland. So your backcourt is done. Your backcourt is sorted. And then
you just call that an asshole, man.
And then you've got and then you've got your 2 forwards sorted. So I would go with Jarrett Allen here just because I want some rim protection, some athleticism, some rim running. I think that Allen will give you more production and more bang for your buck than whatever Mobley would be. I've seen Cavs fans having our conversations like, is it time we just admit that Mobley is a role player and that's fine? You know what I mean? I think that Allen gives you, at least you know what you're getting from him on a night-to-night basis. There's some size there. There's some length there. He's got great hair when I'm all the way in on having Jarrett Allen as the 5th guy, the man in the middle of this team. I would very much like to see play together because I think it sounds absolutely brilliant.
Man, I was not expecting. I mean, Evan Mobley. I feel like I'm a little shocked that he's going this late. Like I didn't think that this would be the case. I mean, I really like Darius Garland as well. like you said, he's been dealing with an injury this year. His numbers, and this is, like you said, it's kind of a fit issue. And that was my biggest issue in the playoffs last year, is that they didn't give him the ball enough against the Knicks, is that they didn't allow Darius Garland to be the point guard that Darius Garland is, which, to your point, is that traditional point guard. With his numbers being down, and I would take Mobley over Allen. I think,
Mobley's still 22. He's got a great career ahead of him.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I mean, I think him and Franz are in the same draft. So that's why I was kind of thinking the two of them were going to be right there. And then that's why, once again, if it goes back the next 2 to 4 years, it's a little bit more interesting for me, Franz, Mobley, because Mobley still has, like I was saying, the projections of what he could be, but really hasn't. He's actually reduced his outside shot this season, which I know was something they were trying to get him to grow, and he's shooting the ball even less now. So that makes the him and Allen pairing even weirder. Talk about redundancy. That's a very weird spot for the two of them offensively. But Evan Mobley, I'm a little bit surprised to see that he would be the guy in the 6th spot here as we're looking around, just because of
value pick for you.
Oh, it's amazing value pick. I mean, I think he was either 2nd or 3rd in defensive player of the year last year as a sophomore, right? And he's falling to this level. So I think when you look at these two teams, and this is partly why I wanted to do it, it's just interesting to see, where they're both trending. They all have guys that are, Mitchell's kind of in like the Tatum Brown age kind of range of where he's at in his career. But everyone else is basically, 24 and below, 24, 25 and below, when you're looking at the other 5 guys that we're kind of talking about here. And so it makes it interesting to see where these teams are going, because the Cavs last year won 50 games, got a 4 seed, and then stunk up the joint against the Knicks. The Magic right now, they're seemingly on a path to, we'll see where the season ends up for them, but they seem to be ahead of schedule. And so it's a really interesting week for the Celtics to kind of stack themselves up against these other 2 teams in the top 6 in the East and just see where they're at. And then for these teams to kind of see, for the Cavs, where are we going from here with Donovan Mitchell as our best player? And then for the Magic, are we still the Giant Slayer? Let's keep beating the shit out of the Celtics like we've been doing, and
right.
and see what that does for them.
I think, to my point that I made a couple pods ago, the reason why we struggled against the Knicks, the Cavs, and the Magic last year is because they're big teams, right? Although Mitchell and Garland are small, like overall, those are big teams, which is why I think we got Porzingis. Like, there's some teams around the league that are just huge now, and I think that was why we went out and got Porzingis. So I think if Porzingis is able to play in all 4 games this week, it'll be a really good litmus test for this team to see how much that's paying off. Obviously, being undefeated against the Knicks this year, right now, I think already shows you the value of getting a Porzingis. I just wanted to throw one last question out to you guys, not on these 2 teams, but if you could pick for the next 4 years, one of these 2 guys to be the back line of your defense, who would you pick? Evan Mobley or Jaren Jackson Jr.?
Evan Mobley.
How many years?
4.
Evan Mobley.
Yeah, man, it's going to probably be Mobley, but I'm not very comfortable with it. I'm not very comfortable with either, but Mobley gives you more size, more length, more versatility.
Yeah, the reason why I brought that up is just because, like, when you said Mobley was a top 3 defensive player of the year guy last year, I think there's like a couple guys around the league that people just kind of look at numbers and like all the vorps and schnorps, as Zach Lowe likes to say, and I just don't think they're as good on defense as like some people think they are. Like, I would prefer any day of the week for the next 4 years to backline my defense to have Bam Adebayo. Right. And but the people last year were saying that Mobley, Jackson, and Adebayo are living in the same air. To me, it's not close. I think Bam's like way better of a defender than both of those guys. Right. But they want to take Mobley and Jaren Jackson and say that they're just as good as Bam. I really don't think it's close. So that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Who would you take, Mobley or Jaren Jackson?
I'd probably take Mobley. Jackson. As much as
it's too many 2 rebound nights from Jaren Jackson. Like,
yeah,
dude,
that's a little alarming. And Jackson, to me, he fouls too much, man. He just fouls, and that's been a problem since college, dude. He fouled out of games in college. Izzo could only play him like 20 minutes a game in college.
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem when you're not on the court. But this has been a fun one, boys. I think we've successfully completed another episode of Passing the Rock. That's going to do it for this episode of Green with Envy. As I said, interesting Celtics week coming up here. They don't play again until Tuesday against the Cavs, and then Thursday, Friday, back-to-back Cavaliers, Magic, and then a Sunday matinee. So we'll see what we do for a recording schedule next week, since we have a matinee game in the mix as well. But stay locked in to Green with Demi. Stay locked in across all of our socials. As a reminder, the Discord link is updated. So if you're looking for it on any of our socials, you're looking for it in the description. Apologies that it was not updated before, but it is ready to go. Go ahead, join us. Come join the fun. Greg, for those listening on the audio format, what are they going to hear on the way out?
Let's see if Adam can do this. Adam, do you know what song's about to play? Do you know how to end the show?
You're about to be listening to Black Sheep Optimist, and this is Skywalking. Or is it Get This High?
Get This High.
Yeah,
Black Sheep, y'all know
That's a
the drill.
throwback.
Black Sheep Optimist. Get This High. Peace, everybody.
Make sure you guys follow the right Twitter account. See y'all guys later. Peace.
Yeah, that's my bad.